Hello, in this tutorial, we're going to take a look at modeling animals and basically how you can build up all of the material so you can put a texture on there and make it look a bit more realistic. So what I'm going to do is create this wolf that you can see on the screen here. And to be completely honest, this was really easy to create. And I'll show you how to do it. So if I open up this folder here, you can see that I've got this wolf silhouette. So if I just drag that into the software, I'm not going to save the changes. And you can see that it brings in that image. So what I'm going to do is change the width and the height. Let's say I want this to be 12 inches. I'll just put the origin in the center for the sake of it and select OK. So if I turn on my zero plane because it's not on, and let's go back to the material because I'll do this in the 2D view. So here you can see this wolf silhouette. Now, I'll be completely honest, this would actually be easier if it was a proper picture of a wolf. The only difference being is that if it was a proper picture of the wolf, then to start, what I would need to do is manually trace around the edge of it. Because this is a silhouette, I can do the bitmap to vector and trace it, but it wouldn't make much difference. It would actually be easier if it wasn't a silhouette because I would be able to see where all of the wolf's bones are and where all that mass is on the legs, say, for instance, and down here on the belly. I can't see that at all. So I'm going to have to make that up and basically imagine it. So first of all, do a bitmap to vector. I'm going to reduce the colors, and because it's just a black image, let's just bring that right the way down to 2 colors and apply. And then create the vectors. So that creates the vectors around the edge. Then I can drop the contrast slider bar down and you can see that I've got these vectors. Now, this is the hard bit. So to actually create the 3D, that's not hard at all. The hard bit is creating the vectors and knowing where to put the vectors. So for this, I know that this leg is going to come up here and I know that it's going to go around there. So if I start creating vectors, and what I can do is let's just turn on smooth vectors. Now, I'm not going to bother going around where all of the claws are. I'm going to actually bring in another set of vectors that I already created because I don't want you to just watch me creating vectors. It's going to take me quite a while to do that. So if I just hover around there, and you can see that I'm just creating these vectors. Now, they haven't got to be brilliant, so you can see here these are all curvy and, you know, it's not following the exact shape around here. It hasn't got to, so don't worry about it. Okay, now I'm doing it inside just a little bit because I'm going to smooth it all off afterwards. So let's go maybe around there. And I know that this back leg is going to have quite a large muscle on there. So you sort of have to imagine how the muscles are going to look in the wolf or the animal. And that's how you create it. So if you make a mistake, like I have here, press minus on the keyboard and you can go back. So probably want that to come down there. Having to pretty much imagine this because I can't see what it actually looks like. So let's say like that. And then maybe the tail. Let's go around there. It hasn't got to look perfect. Like I said, you're just basically adding material onto this. Okay, and then you can have that coming round so it doesn't touch there, or you can have it blending over the top. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to do it so it just follows it round. It's a bit easier to smooth off then. Okay, so you just do that for all the parts. Again, for the center there. Again, the legs, they're going to have big muscle mass in there. So what I'm going to do is cheat, and I'm going to delete those, and I'm going to import some vectors. So I'm going to import these wolf vectors that I have here. And you can see that they're already drawn. Now, obviously, I spent a little bit longer doing these, but as you can see down the bottom there where the claws are, you can see that I've spent a little bit longer doing them, but it doesn't really matter too much, to be completely honest with you. So don't worry too much about that. So you just need to make sure that you get the bulk of the material in there. Now, this section here for the ear, I don't need that. I've done that for nothing. Right, let's take a look in the 3D view. So as long as you've got those sorts of vectors, they haven't got to be as detailed as I said. So this bit that you've got here, where I come up here, don't really need to do that. It just adds to the effect when you actually create the shape. So if I go to the 3D view, let's turn on the vectors like so. Now, what you have to do is work from the bottom up. So if I select the outside shape, then what I need to do is create a 3D object from there. So let's go to the shape editor. And then what I'm going to do is just a round shape. Now, don't do it too much. So let me turn off the vector visibility. Here you can see that this is a typical newbie sort of error, is to basically blast this right the way up and then have like this lumpy, bumpy, what we call it, shape. So basically it's trying to blend into each of the nodes and it gives you all these like sort of bumps in the relief. That's not what you want to do because it just won't look right at the end. So what I would do with that is bring that right the way down and make it something small. Let's say about 10, like so. And then obviously because it's just sitting on this 0 plane and there's no depth to it, you want to add a start height to it. So maybe let's say 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and then you add this start height to it. Now make sure that you select apply. Make sure that the combine mode is set to add first. So set to add, select apply. And then that creates the relief. If I cancel it now, I'll exit the tool and then basically that's created the relief. So now what I want to do is create reliefs for all the other parts. Now, what I would normally do if I was spending a bit of time on this, I would create different heights for each of these different sections, just so I've got different areas that are higher and different areas that are lower. So that would be higher than this section here, which would be lower. But I'm not going to bother doing that. I'm just going to show you a real quick way of doing this. So if I open up the shape editor, let's select the tail. Let's select that there, the back leg. Let's select the inside part. Let's select that. Let's select that. Let's select the head. And let's also select that. And let's select that. So pretty much everything. Okay, except for the ear and the eye. Let's do a round shape on that. Let's turn off the vectors. And you can see that that sort of adds the detail. Now, again, you don't want that to be too much. Let's make it, let's try, let's say about 15 for the angle. It's probably a little bit too much. Let's make it about 10. Like so. That would probably look okay. All that I need to do then is obviously smooth it out. So make sure that you've got add as the combine mode, select apply. And then what we can do is turn on the vectors. You don't need to exit the tool. Let's select that ear there and also the eye. I'm going to do a round on this, but as you can see, it adds it onto the top of it. I want this to be sunk in. So you can either select subtract or you can do a negative like that. So let's select apply and then cancel. So there you can see the basis of my wolf. Right, so what we need to do now is start smoothing this out because obviously it doesn't look great at the moment because all of these areas are not sort of joined together and they just don't look correct. So what we need to do is smooth this. So if you go to smooth, and we need to do this manually, so I'll keep that radius about 50 pixels. Let's start off with a low strength. Let's see what it does, about 10%. Okay, so let's smooth that like so. Let's just go around. Now you need to make sure that you smooth these edges or the areas where it actually touches each other. So let's make the strength a little bit higher. Let's try 25. I could also go around the edge, and I need to make sure that these areas here all blend in nicely. So let's go around the edge. Let's blend in like that. Now, I don't want to go too mad here because I don't want it to blend in too much. Now, don't worry about this. If you do blend it in too much, I'll show you how to do it later. So let's just go over this like so. I'm just doing this really, really fast, as you can see. I should also point out that I'm not an artist, I'm an engineer. So somebody who had some actual skill and who was artistic would do this a lot better, and they would know exactly where to put these vectors. Okay, so this is blended in quite nicely. Quite liking the look of that. Okay, so that's all blended in. So that was really, really, really quick. And if you wanted to, you could leave it there if you wanted to. Let me close that. And you've got your wolf, basically. Now, I've just missed that edge, so let me just smooth that out. A bit there. So you notice it when you rotate it around. Right, so let me zoom out and take a look at it. Right, now, to make this look even better, what we could do is add a texture to it, or we could add multiple textures to it, and then that would basically give it a lot more realism. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add some textures to it. So turn on the vectors. Now, what I want to do is move these vectors so they don't get in the way. So let me select all of those. I'm going to right click and move vectors to new layer. And then I'm going to go back to my default layer and turn off that layer so I can't see them. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just draw a vector going around the edge there, like so. So this is basically going to be the boundary for one texture, and then I'm going to go around here. Let me undo that. So I've missed a bit there. And this is going to be a boundary for a second one. Right, so let me do this large one first. So I'm going to select that vector, and then I'm going to go to the texture relief tool. So if I click that, now what you can do with this, you can add pre-generated textures, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to have a bubble wrapped wolf or a weaved wolf. What I want to do is add fur to it, obviously. So what I need to do is selection, click selected vector. So it just does it within this vector. And I want to do it from file. So select a file, and I've got a folder that's got lots of textures in there. So if you just grab a texture, just an image from somewhere, and you can see I've got lots of textures within here. And I'm sure I've got a wolf texture somewhere, or wolf fur texture. There we go. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to turn that into a relief. So let's open that. Now you can click preview, and it will show you what the texture actually looks like. So if I drop the height of that down, so it's at the moment it's almost 1 inch, so that's absolutely huge. Let's make it, let's say 25. It gives you a preview of what it's going to look like. Now, if I were to add this now, you can see that the width and the height is 12 inches, so it makes this quite large, this texture. So if I were to add that now and apply, you can see that it doesn't really give me a great texture. So I don't want to do that. What I need to do is make it smaller. So let's do it, let's say 2 by 2, and then apply that. And you can see that I get this really nice texture. Now, the only problem that I get with this is that I've got all of these edges. So I've got all these lines going across it. The reason for that is that the texture that I used, it wasn't tileable. So if you can get tileable textures, then you're winning, okay? And then you won't have any of this and you get really, really nice texture on there. So what I'm going to do is close that, and I need to sort this out. Now, don't worry about what lies over the edge of the wolf, because that's not important. We'll sort that out later. All that we're concerned about is what lies within the wolf. So if you go to smooth, and I'm going to drop the strength down, let's say to about 10, and I'm going to start just smoothing these edges. So that's just the start of me. I want to get these out of the way. I don't want any of those lines in there. It would just look rubbish if they are in there. So let's smooth those down. Like so. Now, let's smooth that. Now, obviously the feet, I want them quite smooth. So let's do that. Now, obviously, this is very artistic. This is exactly how you want it to actually look. So my idea of a great wolf might be different to your sort of wolves, or maybe where I assume that there's supposed to be lots of texture or lots of fur isn't really the place that you would like to see lots of fur. So this is where basically your artistic side comes to the forefront. So I'm just smoothing this off really slightly, like so. Okay, now go over all of this. Or do as little as you like, it's entirely up to you. I would spend a little bit of time doing this because it makes it look a lot more lifelike, and it will be well worth the efforts in the end. So I'm just clicking, going over little sections here. Like so. Okay, maybe leave it a little bit further at the top, like so. Rotate around if you want to take a look at it. You can see that that's given me some really nice fur. And this is just done by just literally adding a texture to it. You can see that I've missed a line there. Zoom in. That looks okay. I'm quite pleased with that. So let's take a plan view of that. And this at the top, let's sort that out actually there. I've got a line there. Now this at the top here, I want to get rid of most of that. So what I'm going to do is just do quite a large smooth there. And then I'm going to make the radius quite small, and I'm going to start sort of digging into it, just so it gives me sort of a jagged sort of texture. And the reason being is that when the other one comes over the top, it will give a nice blend. So let's make that a bit larger. Let's just smooth that in. Okay, so that looks great. I'm happy with that. Now, as you can see, the area is going over the top. Don't worry about that. We'll sort that out in a moment. So let's add another texture for this. So let's go to the texture relief tool, select vector again, from file, select file. Let's see what other textures I've got in here. I want a really nice furry one. I want this to stand out. So see how I've got this fur here. Let's use that. Let's turn on the preview so I can see it. You can see there's a lot of detail in there. That's quite nice. Do the same thing again. Let's make it about 20 thou. Like so. And I'm going to scale the height and the width. Let's make it 2 wide, let's say. Tell you what, let's make it 3 wide. Like so. And let's see what it looks like. Let's apply. Now, remember, you can always undo this if you want to. So I think that looks okay. So let's close that. Let's do the same thing with this. Let's start smoothing it out. So go to the smooth tool. Again, let's start smoothing these lines out. Now, luckily, at the top here, it's got that line on the nose, and I don't want any of that to be smooth, to be completely honest with you. Wolves don't have furry noses. Well, not that furry anyway. Right, so let's smooth that out. I got quite lucky with this line here. Probably need to get some tileable textures. Okay, so let's smooth this out. And around the eyes, it shouldn't be so furry. Let's smooth that out. Let's make it a bit larger. I quite like all this fur here. Okay, so that looks quite cool. Now, what I need to do, maybe do a bit more there, is this is going to align. I need to bring that in. So I need to do what I've done before, make it small, and then I'm going to sort of do a jagged sort of smooth, just so it blends in nicely. Okay. So let's turn off the vectors. That looks pretty cool. Now, obviously, I've got a little line going in there, so maybe let's try and smooth that out as well. So that's where the textures basically overlap to each other. Okay, now you can spend a lot longer doing this if I was you, but so that's it. That looks okay. Right, so let's close that. Right, let's get rid of all of this background. I don't need that. So to do that, let's delete these vectors. We don't need them any longer. And let's turn on our original vectors. And select the very outside shape. And then what we're going to do is go up to 0 outside vector. That will zero everything or remove everything from the outside. Right, so what we can do now is turn off the vectors, and you can see that we've got some pretty decent looking texture just from an image. Now, there are a couple of problems with this that I can see. The first ones are the ear and the eye. I can't really make them out, and I don't really like that. There's also this back leg here. I can't really differentiate between the two legs. So I'll show you a couple of ways to sort that out. So let's take a look at the ear and the eye first of all. So let's turn on the vectors, and what I'm going to do is basically remove all the material within the ear and the eye. So let's select that, and let's select that one, and this time I'm going to zero inside the vector, and that basically puts a hole there. So what we need to do is use the shape editor to bring the material back. So if we go to the shape editor, it should automatically remember the sizes that we used. Now, because what we need to do with this is merge high, so we need to blend it in, and we need to add a start height. We can't do both of them together because this area here is a different height to this area here. So let's say the eye first of all. Let's turn off the vectors so we can see, and let's give it a start height. Let's try 0.1, 0.2, maybe maybe 0.18. That looks okay. So apply that. Do the same for that there. Now the problem that I've got there, I applied that and I didn't use merge high. I basically added it. Now sometimes when you do that, you'll get spikes in the relief. You need to merge higher. Luckily, I didn't get a spike in there, but sometimes you'll have two pixels that overlap each other and you get a big spike coming up. If you ever do that, you need to make sure that you use merge high. Okay, so let me see what this one looks like, and I may get a spike on this one. So the start height 0.2, maybe make it a little bit bigger, 0.25. So I haven't got a spike on that one either. So I'll just do it as merge height anyway, and then apply that. Right, so we need to smooth these down. So let's take a look at these. Now you can see the ear is absolutely huge. So what I need to do is bring that down. So let's make the radius a bit larger, and I'm just going to smooth that into there. And I want that to blend in so you can't see it. Okay, that looks cool. And then let's do the same thing for the eye. I don't want to go too mad with this. I want it to stand out. Okay. Right. Now, I also need to get rid of this area here where it's bleeding over the top. What I'm going to do here is a couple of ways that you could do this. You could add a vector and then do a negative shape using the shape editor, or you could do it freehand. So what you could do, go to the sculpting tools, go to carve, and then you could literally go down here and do it manually. Now I've got this setting quite low so I don't go too crazy with it. And you can see that that's basically created a bit of a carve in there. So what I need to do now is just smooth this out, because you can see I'm using the mouse to do this and it's a bit all over the place, to be honest. So let's smooth this out. It just adds a bit of definition in there. Okay, and now you can sort of make out the front and the back legs. Right, so what we need to do now is we need to get rid of this bleed. So if I turn off the 0 plane, you'll be able to see it. So see how this is coming over the edge. When you smooth or you do some sculpting, you may have it coming over the edge. So turn on the 0 plane again, select that outside edge. I'm going to 0 outside the vector again. And you can see now I haven't got that bleed. Okay, so that's basically my wolf done. And, you know, that's ready to be machined. You can see it looks pretty cool. I quite like all of the texture on there. And it's basically the texture that makes it. Right, so what I want to do is I don't want this tail to look like this. And I want it to be bigger as well. So maybe it's easier to do this before the texture, because you're going to have to blend it in again. So you may need to add the texture again. But what I want to do is resize this first of all. So to do that, relieve cookie cutter and then change the width and the height of this. Now I'm going to change the aspect ratio, turn that padlock on so it locks it. So let's maybe make it 8 and then select apply, and then it changes the size of it, and then you can paste it down. If you want to change the height of that, you can do your Z scale or you can do it here. So let's make it 1/2 inch high and then paste that down. And there you can see that that's changed the size of it. Now another thing that you can do is cut out bits of this model. So let's say, for instance, I wanted to change the tail of this and I wanted to move it around just slightly. What I can do with that is delete these vectors now because they're the wrong size. What I can do with that is just draw a vector around there. Now this is where I want to cut. And rather than doing the 0 inside or 0 outside, I'm going to use the Relief cookie cutter. This will free up just this area that's within that vector. So what I can do now is rotate that around. Now it's not going to look right because it doesn't match up here, but you get the general idea of things. So I can rotate that around like so, and then I could change it so it fits wherever I want it to fit. So I could put that there and then create, using the shape editor, another bit of material to put in there and then basically add the texture to it. So if I paste that down, you can see that that's pasted that down there. And then what I can do is I need to put in a bit more material there. So if I do a polyline, and then let's go around there, like so, into the shape editor, go around, make sure that I'm on merge high, so 0.02, 0.3, like so. Now you can see that that's a bit too high at the moment, so let's drop that down. Maybe do it somewhere around there, and then apply that, and then you can start smoothing that out as well. Now you probably need to add some texture to that area as well afterwards, but at least you can see the sort of process. So just blend that in. Like so. And you can see that I've moved the towel now. Now, again, you could do that. Let's say that you save this model and you come back to it later and you just wanted the wolf's head for something. What you could do is go around the wolf's head like so. Maybe turn off smooth polylines. Just do this jagged. I'm doing this really quick. Like so, and then you could free that up. And then you've got a wolf's head. Okay, so there's lots of different ways that you can do things within Maker Plus. And you can put that to the side if you wanted to, and then you could put something else on the wolf. You could maybe put a dog's head on there if you wanted to. So just a few things that you can do with Maker Plus. So that's how you create a wolf, and you make it look a little bit realistic with using textures within Maker Plus. So I hope you found this tutorial useful, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Goodbye.